Valve shipped a ton of software stuff in the last 2 days. There's the July 21st client update, which landed on both desktop and Steam Deck and Steam Machine, with slightly different notes on each. Then on the 22nd, they dropped two store side changes, a gifting overhaul, and wishlist categories, and those two were built to work together. There's also a restriction on the gifting side that most of the coverage isn't mentioning, so I'll get into that. Without further ado, let's talk about it. Starting with the client update and mainly the changes for the Steam Deck. Now, Valve restored the full set of options in the maximum game resolution dropdown. They're under the more options submenu now, and in the previous update, that list got cut down to 16:10 options only, which made sense on paper because that's the Steam Deck's panel resolution, but it took away a real optimization too. And if you somehow missed that whole fiasco, consider yourself lucky because people were pretty mad. Thankfully, Valve realized their mistake and fixed that in a better branch that has now made it to the official release. Now here's why people went mad and why they wanted this back. Some games only offer you 1280 by 800 or 1280 by 720 in their own settings and nothing below that. But if you cap the maximum game resolution at something like 960 by 600 or 800 by 600 from the actual SteamOS menu, the game renders at that, and then the built-in SteamOS FSR upscales it back to 800p. That's FSR 1 by the way, and it's still a good tool because it does not require game-specific engine data like motion vectors or depth buffers to work. It's purely a spatial upscaler, meaning it applies a sharpening and a scaling filter to a single lower resolution frame after it has been fully rendered. You get the performance headroom of a lower internal resolution in a game that never gave you that option. That's the whole trick. It matters less than it used to because most games ship with FSR or XeSS built in now, but for older titles and smaller releases that don't have any upscaler at all, this is the only way to do it. It also applies when you're docked. If you're on an external monitor and you don't want the game trying to render at the monitor's native resolution, you can cap it there instead of fighting the in-game settings. So yeah, that was a pretty big change, but I'm glad it's now been resolved and restored. Now the rest of the fixes on the deck client, the patch notes preview box in settings system was showing events from the wrong channel, so you will be on the stable channel and it will show you better nodes. That's now been fixed. The mouse cursor turning into a resize cursor at the screen edges is also fixed. The crash when manually starting a game recording is also fixed. By the way, it's been more than 2 years since game recording was introduced and it's still not a very reliable tool. Do you actually use the game recording on Steam Deck like frequently, or have you tried it once, found out that it has some sort of issue and never used it again? Let me know in the comments below. Now, incorrect UI scale in big picture mode while in desktop mode is also fixed, and the controller pairing screen no longer pops up in the middle of a controller firmware update. I've had this happen a few times with my own Steam controller. Then there is a Steam Machine section. Steam Machine verified information now shows on the game capsules in home and on the game details screen. And there's a new Great on Machine section in the library, which has the same structure as Great on Deck. On the desktop client, there are a few things that didn't make it into the deck notes. The in-game overlay could hold a reference to the renderer, and if a game tried to fully tear down and recreate its render after a D3, D12 device for driver failure, that would actually fail. So a crash that looked like a game bug was actually caused by that overlay. On Linux, there is a Steam Web Helper crash fix with hardware acceleration on NVIDIA GPUs. And on macOS, chat windows open through the overlay. They were drawing over full screen games, and that is now fixed. Both of these builds got a workshop change. They reworked the system that manages which subscribed items need updating. There's not much detail provided beyond that line. If you run heavy mod lists, that's the kind of change that either fixes everything quietly or breaks something for a week. So check on how that's doing and let me know. I'm kind of scared to open Project Zomboid now because I have over 100 mods in that game installed. Now remote play, and the headline here is 5994 FPS as a frame rate limit option. And that is actually really cool. Now 5994 is 60,000 divided by 1001. It comes from the NTSC television standard, and the reason it still exists is that a lot of modern video pipelines never stopped using it. Plenty of TVs, capture devices and HDMI display modes report 5994 Hz rather than exactly 60 Hz. And this is not a performance thing, it's a synchronization thing. If your display is running at 5994 and you send it exactly 60 frames per second, those two clocks will drift against each other, and the stream has to drop or repeat a frame roughly every 16.7 seconds to stay lined up. And that's what you're seeing when you get the occasional hitch in an otherwise clean stream. Matching the encoder to 5994 removes the mismatch entirely. So if you're streaming to a normal 60Hz monitor, you can leave it at 60 FPS and this changes nothing for you. But if you're streaming to a TV or an external display or a capture setup that reports 5994, this is the option you've been missing. I think it's a pretty small audience that needs this, but if you're in it, you know exactly why this option is pretty great to have. The rest of Remote Play is fixes. They reduce frame drops when the frame rate limit is on automatic, black screen when hardware encoding is disabled, offline devices showing as streamable when they aren't, the client video decoder getting overloaded with unlimited bandwidth enabled. They also fixed mouse coordinates for input-only streaming, and on the Steam Deck side, a fix for very low refresh rate on subsystems that came in with the last beta. I talked about Remote Play getting a lot of attention this year previously, and that's likely due to the Steam Machine. Valve kind of wants you to use the Steam Machine and the Steam Deck together in tandem using Remote Play, so we're probably gonna be seeing more and more polishing changes to that functionality over the year, which is pretty great. Steam input is mostly Steam controller work. The gyro calibration threshold has been dropped to 50% of the previous value, so it's less likely to trigger while the controller is in your hands. That threshold is also now exposed under settings, controller details, calibration and advanced, and then gyro calibration. So you can change that if you want. And there's a new toggle, enable software calibration for the Steam controller, which lets you turn off hardware calibration entirely and lets you use the standard Steam input gyro tools instead. Now, gyro stutter from the IMU timestamp being ignored is fixed, and they also fixed some glyphs in Shadow of the Tomb Raider that was showing incorrectly previously on the Steam controller. Valve also now supports a bunch of new controllers, the wired and wireless PDP Afterglow Wave for the Switch, and Turtle Beach controllers for Switch 2. There's also a fix for the Apex 5 showing up as multiple controllers when you have third-party mapping takeover enabled in the FlyDigi Space Station app. So if you have that controller, check on those fixes now. It should now work as intended. There's also a Steam controller firmware bundled with this update. Duplicated trackpad samples causing momentum problems in trackball mode are fixed, and occasional repeated presses on the B button, all that is fixed. The B button one in particular is the kind of thing you would have to turn the controller over. To install all of these updates, you can go to your system settings, check for an update, apply it, and restart the device. If you guys are enjoying this news breakdown and you want to see more videos on Steam, Steam Deck, Steam hardware, consider subscribing to the channel. Now for the gifting update. Guest checkout used to cover digital cards and hardware only. That was added in 2024. Now guest checkout covers any game on Steam, so somebody with no Steam account at all can buy a game and send it to somebody as a gift. You also no longer need to be Steam friends with the person you're gifting to. That's been a restriction people have been asking about for years, and now it's finally gone. Gift to email is a new addition, a new feature. Both digital gift cards and games can be sent straight to an email address. You don't need to know their Steam account. They get a link, they sign into whatever account they actually use, and then they can accept it. Now, there are some caveats with this new update, and Valve states these directly in the post. A gift email that isn't accepted within 30 days is automatically refunded. Because of that, email gifts cannot be scheduled for future delivery, so you can't buy something in November and have it land on Christmas morning by email. Well, you can, but you gotta time it right before the 30th day. And the recipient has to live in the same country as the purchaser. That last one is a big one. So gift to email is not gonna be a workaround for cross-region gifting. It's specifically for people near you who you just don't have on your friends list for some reason. Now, cross-region does have its own changes. You can now gift games directly to a friend in a higher priced region, and Steam calculates the cost in their region at checkout instead of the old digital gift card dance where you had to know the exact price on their end. For that one, your friend does need to be on your Steam friends list. The gift option screen itself has a 160 character message limit, a custom signature field, and a delivery is either as soon as possible or scheduled. Scheduling works for normal gifts, just not for the email ones. And then direct from wishlist. You can gift a game or send a digital gift card straight from someone's wishlist, and when they click your shared wishlist link and choose to gift you something, the gift recipient in the card is pre-populated with your info. So combine that with the guest checkout and the whole flow is you send the link, they click, they buy, done. No account required at any point. Now on to the third and last topic, wishlist categories. And this is the one most people will actually use day to day. You can now create custom categories and name them whatever you want. Valve examples are things like wait for reviews, next fest summer 2026, fun for Steam Deck, buy when on sale, something like that. Works exactly like the library collections, and a game can be in more than one category at once. You can assign them from the store page using the on wishlist dropdown, which has a categorized section with your recent and suggested categories right there, so you don't have to go back to the wishlist page or sort anything, or you can manage them per game from the wishlist itself. Clicking a category name at the top of your wishlist filters down to just those games, and search on the wishlist page has autocomplete now, and it searches by name, tag or category. Notifications got scoped, and this is more granular than I expected. There's a wishlist activity table with 4 notification channels: email, client toast, mobile app and feed. You set those per event type, so an item going on sale and an item releasing or leaving early access and a demo releasing are now all separate rows. And underneath all that, there's a category filter, so you can say something like only notify me about these categories if you want a fun for Steam Deck category that pings you on sales, and a wait for reviews category that stays completely silent. You can do that now. Furthermore, demos got a green demo available button directly on the wishlist entry, and you can opt in to being notified when a demo releases for something you're already tracking, and micro trailers now play when you hover over a capsule. And navigating from your wishlist in a browser, on mobile, in a Steam client or SteamOS now brings you back to where you were, which if you got a few hundred games wishlisted is probably the fix you've been waiting for. They also tweaked the contrast and legibility on the page a little bit. And then sharing, which is where this connects back to gifting. You can share a link to a specific category or any filtered view, not just your whole list, and the share button gives you a unique URL, so people with that link can view the shared list even if your actual wish list is set to private, and you can revoke links at any time. I think the obvious use for this is like a birthday list or a Christmas list category that you share with your family, and then they can buy off games as guests. I think for the Steam Deck specifically, the move is a Steam Deck category on your wishlist for things you actually intend to play and handheld. Then you can filter that during sales instead of scrolling the entire list. So that's going to be the roundup of news. The client update is small fixes, but the resolution dropdown coming back is a big one, and the 5994 FPS for remote play is also a welcome change. The store side changes are the ones you notice every day, with the same country restriction on email gifts being the caveat to know before you plan anything around it. But let me know, what do you think about the wishlist categories? Are you gonna use them, or is your wishlist too far gone at this point? Let me know down in the comments, and if you guys enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like. If you hated it, leave a dislike and let me know what I can do to improve. And if you're into Steam, Steam Deck, Steam hardware, gaming handhelds and cool tech, consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.